Miller Moss is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC this season.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into the first episode of July. My goodness, time is going by really quickly. As always, I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. We are beginning our 10-part football position preview series, starting with the quarterbacks. I'm going to explain why Miller Moss will be one of the best in the ACC this season. I have 3 reasons that I believe back up that claim. We will compare him to Jack Plummer and Tyler Shough. How will his season line up with that of Plummer's in 2023 and Shough's in 2024? We'll also talk about QB2. Who's going to be the main backup to Miller Moss? Is it going to be Brady Allen, Deuce Adams? More on that when we discuss that at the end of the show. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, Card Nation, it is that time of the year once again. We are getting closer and closer to the football season at the end of August. We are now going to conduct our third annual position preview series. It is a 10-part series that will span a lot of the month of July, where we're going to have 17 episodes. Don't forget, it's almost pretty much a in-season month for the Locked On Louisville podcast. But we begin with the quarterbacks, and of course, there's no default generic rubric with these position previews. It's going to be a lot of talk of the main storylines, guys that are primed to have breakout seasons, what the depth chart could look like, and much more. But the quarterback's position has been a pretty easy one to predict what the depth chart is going to look like, at least in terms of the starter, because in Jeff Brohm's past 2 seasons and his next season, he's gone to the portal. Jack Plummer from California, QB1 in 2023. Tyler Shough from Texas Tech in 2024. Now Miller Moss from USC in 2025. And I think that Miller is going to be one of the best in the conference. Now, of course, this is a very opinionated argument, and people didn't start giving Tyler Shough his flowers until later on in the 2024 campaign. Now, Miller Moss is more highly thought of at this point in the offseason than Shough was 12 months ago, because Shough had the injury concerns. He hadn't played a full season, one of the oldest quarterbacks in college football. What a lot of the nation didn't know was just how elite of a talent Tyler Shough was, or is, I should say. Miller Moss still, I think, is being put a little bit further down lists behind guys like Cade Klubnik from Clemson, Carson Beck from Miami, Kevin Jennings from SMU, Haynes King from Georgia Tech, Duke's Darian Mensah has gotten a lot of props this offseason, as well as Eli Holstein from Pittsburgh. But regardless, I do think that Miller Moss will be one of the best in the conference. And when I say one of the best, I mean for sure top 5, potentially top 3. Now, how or why is that going to be the case? Well, I'm looking at 3 specific reasons. And the first one for me is just the overall talent. I think with Miller Moss having, I won't see a full season of playing last year in 2024 because he got benched midway through the season. More on that coming up here shortly. But the 6'1" native of Los Angeles is one of the best leaders at the quarterback position. I mean, you look at that LSU game last year, look at the Louisville game from 2023. Incredible poise in the pocket, doesn't get rattled much, does a good job of, just leading his guys. Incredible accuracy in the intermediate routes, those 10 to 25-yard throws he is on the money with. Does a good job of throwing his receivers open, and that's one of the aspects of being a quarterback that I think in a Jeff Brohm offense, which is a pretty much a pro-style offense that you're going to see in the NFL. Being able to throw your receivers open is critical. Tyler Shough was really good at that in 2024. Now, Moss might not necessarily have the arm strength and arm talent that Tyler Shough had. Shough, one of the best arms in college football last year. But where I think he makes up for that is he has a really good quick release, the internal clock, the ability to make those quick reads and quick decisions. Something that I think at times it took Tyler Shough a little while. There was some indecisiveness at times. And I think that that's where Miller Moss is better than Tyler Shough at. Something else that Shough was good at, and I think that Miller Moss is going to excel with too, is the ability to use the play action. Louisville's going to run the football a lot this year. We know that with the running back duo of Isaac Brown and Duke Watson that they have. But with his ability to operate play action, I think that this offense might not have a ton of deep ball home run plays, but they're going to be surgical and they're going to be really highly effective. Of course, arm strength sometimes can be of question. I think that Moss can be too aggressive at times, trying to fit passes into too tight of windows. But overall, I think that Moss is going to have a really good season. Now, a lot of people question, well, why did he get benched if he was that good? I think that a little bit of two things. Number one, I think Moss isn't immune to some of the blame. Of course, I think that at times he didn't play all the greatest, but the offensive line had some issues. I also think that Miller Moss was sort of the scapegoat in Southern California. Lincoln Riley needed somebody to blame for the tough season, and he went to the quarterback position, added a really talented quarterback into the mix, and the offense really wasn't that much better. So it really wasn't so much of Miller Moss's fault. He had a little bit of hand to blame in that, but let's not act like the offense was bad because Miller Moss was QB1. That's just not the case. Some people that I've talked to from a national landscape perspective also agree with that point. It's like, hey, look, Miller Moss, was he the greatest? No. But did he kind of get the short end of the stick here? 100%. The third reason, and this might be one of the more important ones, Miller Moss is playing in a system that maximizes its QBs. Jeff Brohm does one of the best jobs in college football of tailoring his offense surrounding his quarterback. Now, he doesn't deviate too far from the pro offense, but he messes with the offense to the point to where he makes it very meticulously crafted around his QB1. More on that in terms of the distribution between run and passing plays in the next segment, but I think that with Miller Moss, you look at Jack Plummer, he ran the football a little bit more. There was more, short throws. Tyler Shough, Ja'Cory Brooks, he said, hey, man, just go run, man. Run up the field and let Tyler Shough throw it deep. Tyler Shough threw a lot of deep passes. I think Miller Moss this season is going to have a lot of intermediate routes with Colin Lacey. Colin Lacey does a really good job of catching the football in short yardage and turning it into large gains. And the same thing with Chris Bell and some of the other receivers that they have. But overall, this offense is a quarterback's dream. It's a pro-style offense, really good rushing attack, solid offensive line play, and a really good head coach at quarterback, or a really good head coach that was a quarterback. So even though, in any given year, a Louisville quarterback might not be as talented as other quarterbacks across the conference, I think that the scheme and the coaching that quarterback will receive might vault them higher up the list. And I think that those three reasons combined are why Miller Moss will be, or why Miller Moss will be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC. But how is his season going to line up to that of Jack Plummer's in 2023 and Tyler Shough in 2024? And honestly, I think it could be pretty similar. I'll explain why when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game with your friends or get in the game while your friends are getting sunburnt at the beach. For me, I'm a huge soccer fan. So the Club World Cup is going on. My Chelsea squad is still in it. And the Gold Cup is now in the semifinal round. So check out all of that soccer action on FanDuel. And if you're new, well, you can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. I promise you won't be disappointed with all of the soccer action, with baseball, golf, you name it, all over at FanDuel.com. And as always, I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Continuing along in the first episode of the 10-part series, the football position previews. We're starting with quarterback. Just explain why I believe Miller Moss will be one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC. But how will his season compare to the last two QB1s for the Louisville Cardinals? Just for reference, this is what Miller Moss's stats looked like last season. As a full-time starter, now he only appeared in, or he didn't appear in all of the games, right? How many games did he actually play in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 of the 12 regular season games he played in. So these are through 9 games, had 2,555 yards completed, 64.4% of his passes, had 18 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and got sacked 10 times. So you compare that to Jack Plummer in 2023. Started 14 games, 3,200 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, completed 64.8% of his passes. And Tyler Shough in 12 games last year for the Cardinals, 62.7% completion percentage for 3,195 yards, 23 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. I think that this, if you're talking like the healthy median here, right, or like the average of them, you're right around 3,200 yards, and 21 touchdowns for Plummer and 23 for Shough. So it's basically like, if you are Miller Moss, can you get to 1,300 yards and can you get to over 23 touchdowns? And I think that is a very possible achievement, because I have this feeling that the Louisville Cardinals are still going to throw the ball more than they did in 2023. Like, if you look at the play breakdown, like the difference between passing plays and running plays, like the Cardinals in Jack Plummer's season ran the ball, or they threw the ball 45.3% of the time. Okay. Now, that was Louisville tailoring the offense around that incredible rushing attack with Jawar Jordan and Isaac Guerendo. That number jumped up a decent amount in 2024 to be like one of the top 50 passing play percentage offenses in the country. They threw the ball 50.75% of the time in 2024. Now, a couple reasons for that is because it took a little bit of time for Isaac Brown and Duke Watson to get going. Like the projected starters to begin the year, Maurice Turner, he went down with injury very early. Don Chaney spent a good amount of the season hurt, and even when he did play, didn't have too much of an impact. So until you saw, and then Keywan Brown had some good moments here and there, right? But until you saw Isaac Brown and Duke Watson really like claim those roles about midway to late through the season, the Cardinals threw the ball much more. And I think that, honestly, you had a better quarterback. And no disrespect to Jack Plummer. I think that Jack did what he had to do to lead this offense to 10 wins in 2023. I also think that the Cardinals controlled most of the game and tempo in 2023. You saw a tougher schedule in 24. The defense had its issues to where the Cardinals just had to throw the ball because they trailed more than the 2023 team did. So there's a lot of context that is factoring into these equations. But even with the differences in personnel, in schedules, and passing play percentage, and talent on the outside, whoever your running backs are, the numbers have been somewhat similar, 3,200 passing yards and around 21 to 23 passing touchdowns. So can Miller Moss duplicate that season, that type of a season? And can he extend it even further? And I think that answer is yes. I think that the answer is yes. You look at the Louisville football schedule this season, and it's sort of like 2023 to where you play the majority of home games. And the road games you do play, like 2 of the 4 are in NFL stadiums. The difference with 23 and 24 is there's no Notre Dame on the schedule this year. You replace Notre Dame with another non-Power 5 or non-Power 4 level team. So, yeah, you've got Miami, you've got Clemson, and you got SMU. But outside of that, guys, I mean, this is a pretty favorable schedule for Louisville's offense to put up points. And I think that they're going to have to. I still think that there are some defensive issues that if you can be serviceable, that's great. But I still feel like the defense is going to give up some points. And if they do, the Cardinals are going to have to throw the ball more. So, of course, they're going to spend a lot of time running the football. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, we're going to talk about on the next episode why that duo is one of the best in all of college football. Like the Louisville rushing attack is going to be extremely dangerous, and they're going to use that rushing attack. A lot of this offense is going to be predicated on running the football, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to throw it. Like Chris Bell is going to get a healthy share of targets. A healthy Colin Lacey, I'm really intrigued to see what he could do. And then there's a couple of wide receiver 3 options that could factor into the equation, and then a handful of guys at tight end. But I do think that Miller Moss I think he could get higher numbers in both of those categories. Will he have less than 6 interceptions? I don't know. I mean, he does take risks. I think more risks than Tyler Shough does. But I do think he will have more touchdowns than Tyler Shough. I know I'm being very optimistic here, but listen, you can't have it both ways, guys, because there's a lot of people in the comments saying, Dalton, you're too pessimistic. You don't give this team enough flowers. You don't give them enough props. You're not high enough on Louisville football. And I'm like, saying this team is expected to win 9 games and saying that they could win double digits isn't really a pessimistic take. I like to be pretty realistic. I don't want a sunshine pump on this show. I don't want to also be a Debbie Downer. Look, if you want to go get hot takes just for the sake of giving hot takes, this is probably not your show. This is one of those shows that, as much as I can, of course, I'm human and I do have a little bit of bias, of course. I try to give as much of a calculated take as I can. And with Miller Moss having all the talent that he does in this Brohm system, having the receivers he has against the schedule he's going to play in, I think that he can get to that 3,200-yard number. I think he can get to that 21 to 23 touchdown number. I think that Miller Moss could have one heck of a season. Like this could be a situation to where, why couldn't he? You saw Jack Plummer have a career year when he plays under Jeff Brohm. You see Tyler Shough have a career year when he plays under Jeff Brohm. Like, why can we not apply this same logic and style of thinking to this quarterback? And you could argue that Miller Moss has the highest floor of any of them. Because, Jack Plummer didn't take too many risks, but Miller Moss is a better quarterback than Jack Plummer. And honestly, man, his ceiling might be as high as well. Because, like I said, he doesn't have that arm talent that Shough had. Okay, we know that. We know that. But he's got the accuracy on the intermediate throws. He's got the quick release. He's got the internal clock. He's got the leadership. He's got the ability to process things very quickly pre-snap. I'm just saying that I think that Miller Moss is not only going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, I think that he's going to be the best statistical quarterback that Brohm has had in his 3 seasons, or what will be 3 seasons at Louisville. But Of course, there's a ton of excitement because it's Miller time, right? But what about QB2? Who is the main backup? Is it Deuce Adams? Is it Brady Allen? What about true freshman Mason Mims? Are we expecting to see him this year? We'll try to answer those questions when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, just a reminder, 17 episodes this month. I am going out of town the middle part of this week, and we'll be back at the end of the weekend. So I'm going to be pre-recording some shows to be released Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday or 2 on Wednesday. I'm not so sure, but it's going to be football previews. If something happens on Thursday or Friday and you're like, man, where's the Locked On Louisville episode? Understand that it's going to be coming on Monday or when I get back on Sunday. But in the event that something just completely wild happens, I mean, these football previews aren't time sensitive, of course. I mean, you don't want too much time in between them. But if we need to take a break from the previews because it is 10 episodes and focus on something else that has happened, guys, that's okay as well. It'll just be something that we kind of play by ear. But what about QB2? Who's the backup for the Cardinals? And, of course, Miller Moss, pretty much bona fide QB1. QB2 has been something that I've been monitoring all throughout spring, and I'm really excited to see who separates themselves in fall camp. Because if everything goes to plan in the first 3 weeks of the season when you have Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, and Bowling Green, that Miller Moss shouldn't have to play all of the entirety of those 3 games. Like, the hope is that you build enough of a comfortable lead to where you can put in at least one backup or multiple backups. Now, Harrison Bailey has transferred. Pierce Clarkson has transferred. So right now you are left with Brady Allen, who actually entered the portal and rescinded his name from the portal to come back to Louisville, Deuce Adams, redshirt freshman, and Mason Mims, true freshman from Alabama. I think that at this point, if you made me predict on July 1st, who is QB2? I'm going to say Brady Allen. The guy who followed Jeff Brohm from Purdue has played in this system more. Now, granted, play is such an interesting term because he hasn't played a ton, but he's been in the system more, right? I mean, he's been around the coaching staff longer, but he was the QB2 or got the QB2 snaps in the spring game. And that was after, he didn't have the greatest start to the spring. It was kind of disappointing, but those last final weeks, I'm not sure what changed. But he looked like a completely different quarterback, did a complete 180, was making great throws, was extremely accurate. The deep ball was looking really accurate. And it was one of those situations like, hold on, guys, what do we have here? It was Brady Allen hopefully turning things around. Now, the spring game, he had a couple of solid throws, a couple that weren't so solid. But, hey, it is what it is when you have so many new players that you're trying to factor into the into the system and much more. But overall, I think that Brady Allen probably will at least be the QB2 to start fall camp. Now you have Deuce Adams, the redshirt freshman from Texas, who many believe, and myself included, that he could be the Cardinals' presumed 2026 Game 1 starter. The potential is there. The arm talent is there. There's not many throws that he can't make. Does a good job at throwing guys open. I think that one of the main hurdles that Deuce Adams had to deal with when he got here was just sort of adjusting to the speed. The speed of college football, making quicker reads, making quicker decisions, stuff that young quarterbacks usually have to deal with when they come to college, right? But we're still waiting for him to break out, and he had some good moments in the spring, and he has also had some not good moments, sort of like with Brady Allen. So you have those two guys kind of going head to head here. And I would say Brady gets the nod right now, but I'm pretty confident that nothing has been decided on July 1st. I think that, we're a ways away, probably late into August before we find out who's going to be on that QB2 line on the depth chart. It could be one of those situations where it has Brady Allen or Deuce Adams, because that's probably pretty accurate to reflect what could possibly happen. And even then, it could be one of those things to where, hey, you know what? We're going to list it as Allen or Adams, and we're going to see how each of you play when we take on Eastern Kentucky, when we take on James Madison, when we take on Bowling Green, assuming that Miller Moss doesn't have to play the entirety of the game, hopefully not. But assuming that he doesn't, we're going to give you the opportunities for one of you all to separate. Iron sharpens iron. This is a really good problem to have. I think for QB2, it's two guys that have potential, but we just haven't seen the consistency yet. We haven't seen, that light switch flip to where, one of the guys takes a substantial step forward and is like, yeah, he's primed to be, next in line. And I think everyone thinks that could potentially be Deuce Adams in 2026. But until we see that, we just kind of have to trust that Jeff Brohm and company are, developing these guys in the right ways. And hey, there's one coach that I'm not going to doubt about developing quarterbacks, and that's Jeff Brohm. So I think that those two guys are going head to head here. And then you've got Mason Mims, a true freshman from Alabama. And from what I heard and what I've seen, he had some really solid moments in spring. He also had some moments where you could tell is yeah, this guy's a true freshman. And it's okay. I hope that you're not having to rely on Mason Mims to be QB1 for the Louisville Cardinals in August of 2025. Because if you do, any true freshman quarterback, right? It's not just about Mason, but any true freshman quarterback, if you're having to rely on a true freshman to come in and start, well, your recruiting wasn't really that great to begin with in terms of the portal or scouting or developing. I don't care. I think Mason Mims is a redshirt candidate. I think that it would be a shock to me if he didn't redshirt. I think that this is going to be one of those situations with with Deuce Adams last year and some other quarterbacks that we've seen. This is pretty normal with that 4-game redshirt limit. I think that this is a thing where, against EKU, James Madison, and Bowling Green, if you get opportunities where you're running the score up, and let's say Miller Moss plays the first half and then you go to the backups after that, or even the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, and then you give Brady Allen a couple of drives, you give Deuce Adams a couple of drives. It doesn't hurt to give Mason Mims a drive. It doesn't hurt. You remember 2020, what was it, 2023? Who was it that Louisville played? And I think it was Murray State, and they put 7 quarterbacks. I think that's where you could see, Louisville giving some opportunities while still maintaining those redshirts. You give live in-game reps to try to build that confidence up, to give them some experience, and then, continue to develop those players. I think that Mason Mims is a prime redshirt candidate for 2025, and that was probably always going to be the case. But that is going to wrap up the quarterbacks preview. On tomorrow's show, we're going to go to the running backs. Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, one of the best running back duos in the country. We'll talk about it when we come back on the next episode of Locked On Louisville. Go Cards.